Without the automation, it was within a regulated environment. It's going to take you hours. Okay. I was able to contain an EKS node within about 10 minutes time.
What does it look like when we are doing a incident response for a containerized workload, a Kubernetes workload?
Let's say, for instance, you have a private cluster in EKS. Right?
Okay, already complicated.
You have to be in the same networking configuration in order for you to be able to interact with the Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah.
The majority of what I see is there isn't a sophisticated approach to automating incident response or containment inside of those type of complex environments.
Do we have too much visibility now?
I would say that because sometimes the tooling that is being used can be a bit too noisy. More noise is better than no noise.
Yeah, fair.
Multi-cloud to me just means chaos. Yeah. I don't see that being, to me, it's not realistic.
If you have tried doing incident response to a Kubernetes or a container workload, perhaps have missed out on the complexity of just how can you even plan a playbook when you are not even in the same network? I had a great conversation with Damien Burks, who is a repeat guest of Cloud Security Podcast, has been in the financial and regulated industry building automation for incident response. And over time, he's kind of understood a few things that work and that don't work. So in this conversation, we spoke about some of the things that work and don't work. What can you do from a DevSecOps perspective to prevent some of these things? And if you are trying to look for a new job as a senior cloud person, what are some of the real challenges out there and what kind of path you can take, even if you're starting for the first time? All that and a lot more in this episode of Cloud Security Podcast. If you are watching or listening to an episode of Cloud Security Podcast for a second or third time, I would really appreciate if you can double check that you are subscribed and following us on the platform you listen to us on, whether it's on Apple or Spotify, or if you watch it on YouTube or LinkedIn. I hope you enjoy this episode, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace. Hello, welcome to another episode of Cloud Security Podcast. I've got Damien with me. Hey, man, thanks for coming on the show.
Hey, happy to be here.
Oh, man. I mean, I love repeat guests, so I'm excited for this conversation. Could you give us a bit of background about yourself, cybersecurity, professional life, and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, hey, everybody. I'm Damien. I've been in the cybersecurity industry for a little bit over 6 years, or I would say well over 6 years now. Started out in application security as a security software engineer, building out tools for, incident response and application security engineers. And then somehow, some way, found my way into the cloud. And then transitioned into cloud DevSecOps engineering, where I basically built a incident response platform from the ground up in the financial services world, and then pivoted into a senior cybersecurity engineering role at I would say like a fintech company.
Yeah.
And here I just started a couple of weeks ago, so I don't have too much to say about it, but my overall experience has really just been in the cybersecurity and the security development world. I'm a content creator, have a YouTube channel, and then I also run an open source project called the DevSec Blueprint, which is basically helping people get into DevSecOps and providing them like that paved roadmap with all the recommendations and even projects that you can do. So
yeah. Awesome. And thank you for sharing that as well. The last time you came in, we spoke about incident response, and you obviously participated in the advent of cloud security as well. We spoke about some of the Kubernetes pieces. Container workload is still definitely top of mind for a lot of people. Kubernetes is top of mind. How much has incident response changed in 2025? I think obviously I feel like a lot of things are evolving. Whether it's cloud, and throw some AI in there if you want to. Mm-hmm. How much has it evolved today? If you were to define incident response in cloud, how would you define that today?
It's become more sophisticated. Mm-hmm. And the reason why I say that is because now I'm going to throw AI in because it's, it's one of those things, but now we have AI workloads being added into the picture. Mm-hmm. And with those, you have those data lakes, and you have those agentic models and all those different things running in the cloud. And incident response, you have to look at it not from just the top level, but you have to go a little deeper. It's just okay, if it's running on these workloads, I have to understand all these servers that it's running on. And then I also have to understand the configurations and how not to break things, or if I need to break them, I have to, right?
Yeah.
When it comes to the security, the container aspect of it, the container security aspect, I believe that it has become a bit more nuanced because Kubernetes is an ever-evolving platform, and there's always something new coming out. There's always new technology to support all of the various different aspects of it.
Yeah.
So it's like its own cloud.
Yeah.
And you can take it and throw it into a CSP, or you can build your own cloud with Kubernetes. And when I look at some of the platforms that they have that's coming out, right, like all the CSPMs and CNAPPs and all the various different type of runtime scanning solutions and stuff like that, the majority of what I see is there isn't a sophisticated approach to automating incident response or containment activities and actions inside of those type of complex environments. A
Interesting.
lot of it is manual. You have
Mm.
to build it yourself. They may have, like runtime detection and be like, oh, well, we detected that like something happened in your network
Yeah.
groups or whatever in Kubernetes. And it's like, oh, okay, well, can you respond to it? It's like, well, that's quite complex to do. So, in short, incident
Yeah.
responses evolve quite a bit, but the thing is, the automation part I feel is still lacking, and I think that's going to be a much bigger problem if no one jumps onto it.
Interesting. Because you've obviously worked in regulated industry, to what you were saying as well, which comes with its own regulatory challenges.
Yes.
Incident response, how is it? Like, I guess maybe let's talk about how is it that one approaches incident response to a container workload.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can describe that, obviously we spoke about containment, so I'll definitely encourage people to check out the episode. But if you were to describe, hey, what does it look like when we are doing a incident response for a containerized workload, a Kubernetes workload? Where are the logs? What am I looking at? What is actually available? So people
Right.
have some idea, and then maybe you can add the layer for where do you find yourself doing the automation part?
Yeah, absolutely. So if I were to look at this, right, and let's say like one of the pods in the Kubernetes cluster is
Yeah.
exposed or something like that.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it in AWS, of course, you'll have your CloudWatch logs hopefully mapped to some of the things that you're working on. And the thing is, Kubernetes and AWS is so complex because whatever role that you're using, you got to make sure that you can that role is mapped to the config map that's attached to an RBAC role within the Kubernetes cluster. If you don't have that there, then of course it's not going to give you the permissions or access that you need.
Yeah.
So performing a reconnaissance require permission upfront. Then you look into the pod, you inspect the node, you look at the logs in the Kubernetes cluster. And then from
That's
there,
through CloudWatch?
All of that is by basically using a kubectl. Yeah.
However people want to say it.
kubectl,
kubectl.
Yeah, right.
I've been our purist over here, so yeah, I'll take whatever version you give me.
Yeah. And you can look at all of that, and you have to make sure that, like, of course, you update your kube config with EKS in order for you to be able to do it. And then once you've identified like what the pain points and the gaps are within your cluster, then the automation is actually going to be the hardest part.
Okay.
And I'm speaking from experience because there's a time where I had to write an automated job to basically go in and contain a EKS node that's been compromised. And the issue is, let's say, for instance, you have a private cluster in EKS. Right?
Okay. Already complicated.
Exactly, right?
Yeah.
Because you cannot reach out to, you have to be in the same networking configuration, same VPC, subnet, and security group in order for you to be able to interact with the Kubernetes cluster.
Yeah.
So what that means is that somehow, some way, your automation, you have to have something that you can deploy to attach to the cluster inside
same
the
network,
same networking configuration, and then run those commands in a scripted form, right?
Yeah, and hopefully not break the chain as well in the meanwhile.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I can tell you many a times I've broken that cluster.
Yeah.
But that is, to that point, I've evaluated several solutions already.
Yeah.
CSPMs and CNAPPs to even go that deep. And none of them so far have gone that deep to be able to say like, oh, well, yeah, you have all of these complex issues and these complexities. Like, how do you manage to contain something if inside of Kubernetes if it happens?
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, well, we can just deploy some runtime stuff in there and call it a day. I'm just like, no, but what if it gets like deeper than that?
Yeah.
There's so many different areas that you have to cover, you have to think about.
Yeah.
And when you add cloud onto it, it becomes way more complex.
Yeah, because you lost access to the main node anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the worker node is the only thing you can work with. And, okay, so I see what you mean. Because to your point, is when you evaluated the CSPMs and CNAPPs to look at automation, did you find that, how close can they, because I feel like runtime is more still detection. It's not really.
It's not an automated response. Like,
yeah, like I'm thinking that just gives me the fact that, well, if it was to happen again, we'll be able to detect it. I mean, it's not that, hey, incident has happened right now.
Yeah.
And Damien needs to go in and just do something about this. It doesn't help in that context.
No, you have to go through it manually. And the thing is, it's like, it takes hours, right? You don't have, as an incident responder, you don't have hours
Yeah.
to go in and do things.
Yeah.
And then if you're in a highly regulated environment, you're probably you have different layers of approvals that you have to go through to get access first. And you got to go and you have to go through the different channels. You don't have God level access right off the bat just to be able to take care of your job.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the amount of time that it would take, right, for the attacker to be able to pivot into so many different things.
Yeah. And to your point, this is where containment is even more complex because, wait, so wouldn't containment in this context mean that the person is already, the entity, I sound like Mission Impossible entity. I'm like, watching way too much Mission Impossible. So whoever the attacker is also running like a sidecar in the same cluster. Wouldn't they have to be in the same cluster? Or would it be more like the pod so the pod is compromised. Also, they're in the pod. They're already but they can't come out, right? Because they're already in a private network.
Depends on how you configure it. And that's the thing. It's just like...
Actually, because pod now has IAM roles as well. So you have pod identity.
RBAC roles and all that stuff, service accounts attached to it. So it's just like they can get away with some things if your pod allows it.
Yeah. And your pod has access to an S3 bucket. Next thing you know, you have the data flowing out as well.
Pretty much. And I think that happens, if I'm not wrong, if I'm not mistaken, that can happen at the node level too. Like your node has the role attached to it. So it's just like all the pods may indirectly have access to that S3 bucket. So it gets really complex. So you have to really understand like how your EKS environment is configured to begin with. So
interesting. Wait, so now, I mean, how does one even approach this? Because to your point, you don't have hours.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm thinking for people who are maybe listening or watching to this going, I mean, because there's one thing with servers, which are EC2 instances and all of that. I think it's still understood. We've done that with on-premise, so you can apply a similar model, maybe with some cloud sprinkles in there. In a container world, there's nuance of you're inside a worker node, and you've made sure you have deployed a pod of yourself so you can run the commands. You still haven't contained anything yet.
Yeah.
You're just basically collecting data points and possibly getting rid of the kill chain. Also, not kill chain. You've broken the chain of custody in a way, because now you have entered a new parameter inside this sacred environment now, quote unquote sacred. How did you approach it? I'm curious as to, and maybe if you paint a simple scenario for what would your simplest use case, I imagine that it can get quite complex.
Yeah, the way I approach it when I was building the platform and the tooling for it was I was like, I need to understand Kubernetes first. I need to understand how it works internally, and then from there, I look at the cluster. I see how it's configured at the very like top level, like looking at the AWS configuration. So I started at the roles that are associated with the nodes. Start at the control plane role and all those different things, understanding the identity and access management landscape first. Then the networking components, because that's the key thing. It's just like, okay, well, which nodes are allowed to access the web versus which ones aren't? Or if it's just completely private, right? If it's completely private, then, I mean, that's good. But then like, how do I get access to it?
Yeah.
And then now that's the big thing. So...
because automation basically failed right there.
Right there, yeah. Because networking, I mean, like even when you call like on the backplane, like Boto3 API calls, like you can definitely do that.
Yeah.
But it's when you're trying to run this kube control commands to do administrative things on a cluster.
Yeah.
That's when it's going to become a problem.
I think worthwhile explaining that layer for people who probably don't even understand Kubernetes, because I think they're like, what is Jamie on about? You can just run API calls and get any information about S3 bucket, right?
Yeah.
Like what? And I think maybe it's a bias because you and I probably know Kubernetes, that people just assume that, I mean, I can make an API call to EKS cluster. What's missing there? And I think I would love for you to explain why is that differentiation of I have an API access to Amazon versus I have an access inside the cluster. Why is that differentiation important here?
The reason why is because Kubernetes in itself is pretty much the way I look at Kubernetes is it's like it's a container orchestration platform.
So
right?
It's self-contained.
Self-contained.
Yeah.
And EKS is Elastic Kubernetes Service. It's a service that runs Kubernetes on the back end.
Yep.
So it's like Amazon has provided you this service, but you still need to be able to run the commands native to
To Kubernetes.
administrate it, right?
Inside the cluster.
Inside the cluster.
Yeah.
But in order for you to get inside of it, you have to make sure that your Amazon networking configurations and all of that allows you to be able to do it.
Okay.
So
yeah.
It's the way I look at it, it's there's the Amazon identity and access management, or all of that. There's the Amazon networking stuff. And then after you get to that point, then there's the link between the Kubernetes RBAC roles and then your Amazon IAM roles or users. Yeah. And then there's the Amazon networking component. Yeah. Which
is there a federation in there as well? Out of curiosity, can you federate into an EKS cluster? I haven't seen that myself.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, because the reason I call that out is because a lot of people may even think, I've got federated access to my AWS account because that should be fine for us. I'm like, no, you're still only getting access to just the EKS cluster outside layer, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You can find out how many pods do I have and perhaps what nodes am I running from API calls, but you're not going in. You're not getting like the deeper nuance of what's running inside. And can the logs be pulled out into CloudWatch?
I believe you can.
Yeah, okay. So at least the logs can be pulled out.
Yeah.
And you can use CloudWatch to investigate the log and everything, but you're still not inside the machine. Yeah, you're still basically trying to see from the logs sorry, I didn't want to stop your containment thing. I just wanted to explain the differentiation between the surface level and the deeper level. So you were telling me about the containment. How did you automate that thing? So what was your approach?
So my approach was looking at that because at this time I was basically I had a privatized cluster.
Okay.
I had to create a Lambda function and basically automate the creation of the Lambda function to throw itself into the cluster's VPC, subnet, and then also the security group. And with that, I had to also put like the kubectl commands inside of the Lambda function to execute, to run like all the different things to interact with the cluster in an automated fashion. Because when you have a private cluster, unless you're
in the network,
in
the
network,
VPC,
or your IP is whitelisted in the security groups and stuff, you can't
private link and stuff.
Exactly,
you can't access it.
You can't. You can, even if you tried.
Yeah.
And that was my approach to be able to automating that. It's not the best, of course, at the time, but it was something that it was a way forward without having like a bastion host. Because the bastion host isn't really automated, if you want me to be honest. Like you still have to SSH into it.
I mean, Damien, I will turn that bastion box off when I'm done with it.
Exactly.
I'm not going to walk away thinking I'll do this tomorrow. Because it's not that incident is resolved in a couple of hours. Sometimes it takes days.
Exactly.
And you leave the bastion box open because you want to recreate that tomorrow.
Exactly.
So, but to your point, in a regular environment with Lambdas being included inside a VPC, being able to pull the information from, how far could you get with the containment part with Lambdas? Like as in terms of what would have happened without the automation and what were you able to achieve with the Lambda functions?
So without the automation, it was within a regulated environment. It's going to take you hours. Like it's probably going to take you hours because there's level of permissions and access that you would need to go through.
Yeah.
But if you look at the Lambda function and you have something that automatically provisions and adds it, does all the dynamic lookups that you need, matter of minutes.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
I was able to contain an EKS node within about 10 minutes time.
So from the moment you were notified that there's an incident in this particular
to
Kubernetes
triggering the incident response plan, to creating a Lambda function and all of that, roughly about 10 minutes to take care of everything.
And you'll have the logs, the backup and everything. Oh, wow. Okay, that's pretty good, man.
Yeah.
And wait, so is this, and to kind of scale that up as well, large organizations would have multiple incidents running because you were able to scale this across multiple as well. So you at least had it down to the point that you could just deploy multiple Lambda functions across the organizations. Oh, right.
Yeah.
Interesting. So wait, in terms of, I guess, I'm also want to talk about prevention as well, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
There is a side of obviously trying to do the DevSec printout, the DevSecOps blueprint.
DevSec blueprint.
DevSec blueprint, yeah. So I know you're trying to do the DevSec blueprint, trying to pave up road towards how can people be DevSecOps more DevSecOps. I'm wondering, with the incident specifically when it comes to Kubernetes clusters, what are some of the, I guess, quote unquote, is it more AppSec? Is it more the cloud security side? What are some of the components in that particular thing that people have to think about, especially for people who are looking at a DevSecOps methodology where everyone's been told, hey, we need to do DevSecOps. what would that look like, and how much of it is achievable in a regulated environment?
That is a good question. So I will say this. It's layered. From the application security side,
Yeah.
of course, whatever applications that you have running on it, you have to think about what type of entry points that you'll have, right? So secure coding is definitely recommended. I mean, like it's enforced in
Yeah.
a heavily regulated environment. I will say that.
Yeah.
You also have to think about once you've taken care of the secure coding, make sure like your app that's running isn't susceptible to SQL injection or cross-site scripting. Then you get into the container security portion, which I believe kind of falls in that scope of application security, and not to mention also the dependency scanning.
Okay.
Because most people, when you're developing an application, you're going to end up using someone's dependencies, imports, like open source projects.
Yeah.
Photo 3, for example, is a dependency you import, all of that.
Yeah.
And you got to scan that, make sure that's not vulnerable. Now you've packaged up your application. Now you got to get the container taken care of. And that is the big part.
Yeah.
Because if something does happen, and let's say the attacker gets into your pod, they hack your application, they get into running your pod locally,
Yeah.
you do realize that like there's still commands that they may be able to execute to make things happen. Container hardening is important. And when you look at the container hardening aspect, because that's what's going to be running, or that's what your pod is going to be running, is your Docker image that's been on container, right?
Yeah,
Containerized. Then it's just like, okay, that's secure. Now then we look at the cluster configuration.
Okay.
And that's where you have to understand Kubernetes as a whole. How to configure your network properly, how to configure your service counts, what are some of the best practices from a Kubernetes standpoint. And then once you've learned that, you now have, okay, Kubernetes as a service. Now let's look at the Amazon best practices and let's see how we can align everything that we've just done to the Amazon EKS best practices. And then of course, from an incident response standpoint, there is, the Amazon EKS incident response best practices. So end to end, that's what that would look like. And does that answer your question?
No, it does. It does, because I was going to also add how much AppSec, because we were talking about this before we started recording. The whole cloud security role is quite complex these days as well. I'd love to hear your perspective on how much has it changed. What are you seeing? Because obviously, I think the general belief of cloud security people is just that we're just looking at cloud security alerts and responding to it. But there's so much more to that one role. So how do you see that role today? Why is there so much complexity around it?
I think the way I see the role today is that maybe a couple of years ago, most of the cloud security engineers were basically heavily focused on securing the infrastructure.
Yep.
Yeah, it's all about securing the infrastructure. You got compute, you got all these different things. It's great. In most of the cases, they're, like if I'm thinking of AWS, like the popular AWS services, that's what people mostly are focused on.
Yeah. Make sure there's logging.
Yeah.
Make sure I'm looking at the misconfiguration, all of that.
Yeah. Now it's like, okay, we're actually running production workloads. And we also add in, now this AI into it. And we have these data lakes. We're using SageMaker. We're using all these different things. How do we effectively secure those type of attacks, right? Or those type of services that are being used in that way?
Yeah.
And there is more of an emphasis on automation now because of how complex cloud environments are becoming. You have to automate as much as security as possible in the cloud. Detection, the detective guardrails, proactive guardrails, preventative guardrails, like all those things have become paramount when defining your cloud environment and making sure it's secure. And there is, to me, as a cloud security engineer, there's going to be different pathways for you to be able to solve that, because not every cloud environment is going to be the same.
Yeah. You walk into a new place, it's a completely new environment.
Yeah, they're just like one place maybe using AWS config as a detective thing. You know what I'm saying? To detect all the misconfigurations. Another place just like, well, we're not using it. We have like this whole nother CSPM that we're using to do everything.
Yeah.
And we actually require you to learn Python to be able to build out those custom remediation, those custom detecting that are missing.
Yeah.
And then in another sense, they're just like, oh, well, we're actually using one single CNAPP to handle it all. You don't have to do anything. You just got to write rego policies at this point. So it's just like, it looks very different
Yeah.
no matter where you go. And
Yeah.
your role and responsibility is going to differ based on what the company actually needs from you.
Yeah.
But I'm seeing it's becoming a sliding scale across application security, infrastructure security, maybe container security, because there are some roles that I'm seeing that it just like, oh yeah, you're a cloud security engineer, but your focus is really just going to be Kubernetes in the cloud.
Yep. Yep.
And then there's also like, oh, well, now we got this AI cloud security engineer.
Yeah.
And your focus is going to be securing AI related workloads in the cloud.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
so many different roles now. It's become much more mature.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We're not talking about like, I think, how to install a CNAPP, I guess, anymore.
Yeah.
That we've gone way past
Yeah.
that. Actually, do you know how I was talking about this for the past couple of days? The entire industry started on the foundation that we don't have visibility. Do you feel we have solved visibility? Do we have too much visibility now?
I think we are halfway there with visibility.
Oh, okay.
I would say that and the reason why I'm saying that is because sometimes the tooling that is being used can be a bit too noisy.
Oh, right.
So I think,
you mean the right kind of visibility?
Yeah, the right
fair.
kind of visibility.
Yeah.
But I think that, to be honest with you, more noise is better than no noise.
Yeah, fair.
You know?
You might as well know I could detect it if I wanted to. Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that like we're on track because there's so many different ways to increase or enhance the visibility of your cloud environment and your posture, of course, with the CSPM tools and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I think that there needs to be a bit more emphasis put on to like helping filtering out the noise and actually aligning them, the detections and whatnot to, like those frameworks that are out there and really like providing you actionable insights and metrics on what you need to look into. Because I feel that a lot of the visibility that, like a lot of these tools that are scanning and stuff like that, they're providing you insights on misconfigurations.
Yeah.
But like, what about how can we assess that, oh, well, this misconfigured resource, like this bucket is actually something that we need to action on. And I think that's something that we probably should look into from a, visibility standpoint.
Yeah.
Or maybe that gets into like a more sophisticated detection engineering approach.
Yeah.
So
to your point, then, because cloud security is, and I'll probably add something to the cloud security roles you mentioned as well. I definitely agree it's a sliding scale. I've also spoken to people who do AppSec and CloudSec in one particular role because it's a small startup and they want someone who's a jack of all trades. And I'm going, how can you, like, I mean, I would in no way would describe myself as a programmer ever. Like, so I'm not going to be sitting there and saying, hey, I can do SAST. Yeah. And I know exactly, no, chat GPT or no chat GPT. I don't know that shit, right? Like, so I'm like, I'm going to raise my hand and go, I'm not the guy for this. And the funny thing, maybe a not so funny story, because I started as a CISO. I've tried DevSecOps programs twice. First time it miserably failed. And the reason for that was I actually went down the path of doing a DevSecOps program, starting with SAST, with team members who were cloud security people first. Because we all thought, how difficult can this shit be? Like, I just need to find out, I had the right tool, I bought the tool, and now I have visibility into it. I take that shit to the developers. It should be solved.
Yeah.
And then they ask you the counter question for, oh, you tell me how it needs to be solved. Because I don't know this myself. Now you're in this in a bit of a pickle now because you've raised the problem.
Yeah.
And somehow you don't even know if this is a false positive because you have no clue how this thing works.
Yeah.
So now you're trying to stand there, trying to validate. Let me work on that and come back to you. And you never go back to the person again. The person like, yeah, what happened? Every time the person sees you, like, hey, what happened to that issue? And they're like, yeah, we moved on. I think we found out it was like not needed or whatever. You guys. Anyway, I think so. That was the first time it failed. Second time round, I was a bit more smarter, and we walked down the path of doing leaked credential as the first one to identify, hey, is there any credentials being leaked into GitHub or wherever?
Yes.
It was an example where I found that everyone understood it, whether you're cloud, AI, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Everyone knows you should not put your username and password anywhere.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that was the easiest milestone for people to be onboarded onto a DevSecOps program.
Yes.
Obviously, story continued, but I think I definitely find that these days Are you finding that because there's complexity in the cloud security pieces, people have started building platforms to what you were saying earlier, that you go into a company, there's a Kubernetes platform that is dedicated just for Kubernetes building, and you're a Kubernetes engineer for that. So with the blueprints that you're working on, the roadmaps and the paved roads you're building on, how are you guiding people to even navigate this thing? Because it sounds like there's a lot of information. I mean, the reason you and I and a lot of other people are in this field is basically all the years we've spent trying to understand Amazon, Microsoft, Google, all of that, or at least one of them. We all have got the grays for it as well.
Yeah, exactly. The gray hairs. I was pointing to one that's coming out right now. So
yeah. So how does one? What's a good starting point? Are you finding that people can walk? Because you're obviously doing mentoring as well. So I'm thinking more from that perspective as well, where people who are coming into this now, they obviously have on one side people are telling, hey, AI is solving all the problems, use AI and all of that. And on the flip side of it, people like you and I and others who have been in this field for a while, like, depends on the company you go to. Just because you get an AWS certification doesn't really mean you're walking into like a easy job, right?
Yeah.
So how are you advising people on this to approach this problem?
So there's a few things. Number one, I don't believe that AI is here to replace people. If anything, I think AI is here to complement you.
Yeah.
You use it to help you get better at what you do. You use it to help you learn different things. And then you also talk back to it and say that's wrong. And then you tell it what the reason is. So you trust but verify. So get used to that. Yeah. But I also want to say that, like, from my perspective, because I've gotten this question a lot, right? I had one guy, had a networking call in my Discord a couple of weeks ago, and he was just like, how do we approach DevSecOps from the very beginning, and then now that AI is involved, like, what does it look like? And I told him, I was like, well, let's start at the very beginning. When you look at DevSecOps as a whole, you look at cloud security, and you look at, like, some roles are very different in a sense. The very beginning is really to understand basic cybersecurity fundamentals. You start there first. You understand what the various different attack vectors are. You learn the history of social engineering, and then once you kind of start adopting that mindset, you start to change it a little bit. Then you start getting into coding. Now, here's the thing about coding versus programming, because I believe they're totally different things. And if people want to argue with me, that's fine. I will die on that hill. Programming is something that a DevSecOps engineer can benefit from. And the reason why is because you have to sit there and you have to put yourself in a developer's shoes. These SaaS scanning tools are there to help them be better at securing their infrastructure, but they're not the experts at this stuff. You are. So you have to understand, like, if they're coming to me and they're saying, like, I have broken authentication, I don't understand why it's scanning that. You have to go and look at their code and be like, oh, well, the reason why it's scanning this is because, you have this line here that just doesn't look right, or it's basically flagging because of this parameter, right? But in order for you to understand it, you have to be the person that have built it in the past. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be an expert at Java to understand it. You could be an expert at Python and understand that some of the concepts that you've learned translate to the Java. So the next thing is get really good at one programming language and you'll know them all. That's the one thing I
agree.
them.
Makes sense.
And then the tooling in itself, you learn how, false positives work. You learn DAS, SAS, RASP, all these different concepts. All these different tooling and frameworks. And then from there, that's where you really start to understand. You basically build. I'm the type of person where I'll tell you, like, this is all the theory and the concepts, but, like, you're really not going to know how to do this until you go through and you implement it. You apply what it is that you've learned in theory. It's like studying for a certification. Like, you study for the AWS Solutions Architect. You can't just study and just, like, go write the exam. Like, you actually have to go do the labs. So that's how I've been guiding people. That's how I've been mentoring people. Was just like, these are the resources that you should do. This is the order. Cloud should be pretty much, I would say, the second to last thing that you learn if you're trying to be a DevSecOps engineer. Learn the basics and fundamentals first, and then step into the cloud once you've kind of gotten a good understanding of them. I'm not saying master it, because it takes years to master something. Especially if you're entry level and you're starting. So, I
mean, even without fundamentals, you basically have no clue what you're even talking about. I think I always go back to the example of there's only so much YouTube we can watch for swimming. It's only when you get into the water, then you realize that what really is like swimming, right? I think and it's funny. I think obviously because I've been trying to learn swimming in open water, And I definitely find that it's very different. I watch a YouTube video. Oh yeah, I can do that. And you like go in like, and you're just basically shitting yourself. And then like, I'm going to drown here. I'm going to die. Right. So the reality is very different. And I think, I wonder if it's any different for people who are experienced. Because you said you recently changed your job as well. What was your thinking? Well, I find that in terms of, is it still possible for someone just to focus on one cloud provider and find being like, there is this, and I don't know how true is it. Like I obviously hear multiple data points. Some of them actually say, hey, you need to be like a jack of all trades. You know just enough about Azure, just enough about Google, just enough about Amazon. But one of them you should be really good at. But you need to know the other two as well because everyone's multi-cloud.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you're multi-cloud, in my mind, you're already enterprise. So you already have the scale of people. So where do you stand on that, I guess?
Ooh, I'm probably about to piss a lot of people off when I say this. But here's where I see it. Multi-cloud to me just means chaos, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're not far, yeah.
And when I look at it like this, like my perspective when I tell people who ask me, it's just like, hey, if I were to look at a cloud service provider, like which one would you learn? I was like, well, I'm biased, so I'm gonna say AWS, obviously.
Yeah.
But if it were me, it depends on your industry first, right? Like private sector, you and your company or the type of company that you want to target.
Yeah.
I have people who say like, you know what? I know that I'm in private sector, public sector, like government, federal, and like I've seen a lot of Azure. I'm just like, if that's where you want to be, just go learn Azure. Don't focus on learning AWS or Google Cloud. Just focus on that.
Yeah.
Don't even try to sit there and say, because like AWS, like we both know, AWS comes out with releases features like at least like multiple times a day.
Yeah. I mean, wait for reinvent, reinforce, in between that as well. Yeah.
So if you sit down and you look at that, what the amount of time that you have to take care of yourself, your family, your kids, anything in life, right?
Life in general.
How can you focus your time across multiple different cloud service providers and stay up to date with everything?
Yeah.
I don't see that being, to me, it's not realistic.
No.
I think that you get good at one, you specialize in that one, and you lock into that one. And if you want to explore the other ones, that's fine. But to me, growth is T-shaped. You can specialize and then spread after the fact.
Yeah.
But you always want to make sure that you're still specializing in that one because you're going to become a master at that. And I think that as we become more mature, I mean, like there's every cloud service environment, like they're going to have different services and they're going to keep coming out with more and more and more. How are you going to keep up with the hundreds of AWS services that are coming out and the 25 services that Google Cloud is coming out and all the features?
Yeah.
That's the questions that I have for people who believe in it. So I don't believe in it. I'm very much a specialize in one, stay in one, and then maybe just understand the differences between some of the others, but make sure you have that one that you're really good at and stay good at it.
Funny enough, one of the reasons we started Cloud Security Newsletter was this exact thing because people were talking about how do I keep up? And so I help Shilpi and the team write that newsletter every week. The amount of updates that come in, and you almost like, this is on a weekly basis. And you almost have to filter through, is this service something we're using? Do I even care about this service? But because if you do care about the service, you probably should read that as to what the update is.
Exactly.
And potentially would be used by your developers or someone in the organization. So you need to be able to answer the question for how do I secure this? Oh, looks like turns out they don't enable CloudWatch on it yet. So great. So so you're almost like looking at that going, oh wait, so there's no logging for this.
Yeah.
But people are going to use it. I definitely find the more deeper you go into one cloud, I definitely lean more on that as well. Because there are nuances, the more time you spend on it, there are nuances to the fact that a new service gets announced. How do you secure it? Sometimes there's no security best practice. Like the SageMaker Bedrock, a great example. Because AI was running so fast that people decided, hey, let's do some security for this. They have logging. We did an episode with Kyla and Sai about comparing the AI services between Amazon and Azure. Turns out, logging is not great in Bedrock as well as on the Azure side. At this point in time, at the time of the recording, Azure was better from a prevention perspective.
Interesting.
But detection perspective, AWS was just basically what I took away was it was a startup project. Let's get this shipped. I don't really care. I just want this to be available for people so I can go and talk about this to customers that, hey, this is what we have for you. Start building it. But the moment you start adding the layers for security, there was not many services available. And I don't know, I don't even know how long it took before your CSPMs or CNAPPs caught onto the idea we should include the service, because they're designed for whatever the popular service is, we'll cover for that. So if you're this obscure company that happens to want to build a satellite or a 5G on your AWS account,
Right.
sorry, that's not common. So going back to your programming piece, then you have to build it yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm with you, man. I think I was, as much as I feel the argument for multi-cloud, yeah, everyone's multi-cloud, but if they are multi-cloud, they most likely have multiple people looking at that thing as well. Otherwise, they're crazy.
But the thing is, it's just like when you introduce multi-cloud, like I still stand on this hill, you have to have a expert for each CSP you onboard. Yeah. And what my experience over time I've seen is that some organizations, what they'll do is they'll introduce the cloud, but they don't have the people.
Yeah.
So now you have Azure engineers working on AWS, and it's just like how does that even translate?
Yeah,
you get into that, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of companies that have probably had that, and that's where you get into bad practices architecturally, because that's when you have to understand the nuances of the CSPs, because the best practices in Azure is not the same in AWS.
The well-architected is not the same.
It's not. It's not.
Funny, I've got a story there as well. So one of my companies that I was CISO for, the company acquired a few companies. So we were an AWS shop to begin, end-to-end. We were looking at, everyone's an expert, loved it, large team. And we decided, at least when I say we, the company decided to buy M&A companies across US, Europe, to expand into those countries. And the companies that were being acquired, one of them was in Google Cloud, one of them was in Azure. These are big companies being acquired. So it's not that there's only one subscription or one account. There's like multiple accounts.
Yeah.
But they were small enough that they only had a security person to look after compliance, not for cloud security.
Whoa.
Right? So now what that means is it's automatically come on the parent company to take on this responsibility because they have a CSPM or whatever. And now you're on this path for how do you convince someone from dropping their knowledge of AWS where they've spent years to just go, hey, do you want to learn GCP?
Man.
Would you be excited about learning GCP? And you're like, but no one cares about GCP or Azure, not at least in my friend circle.
Yeah.
So there is that dilemma. So, I mean, I'm with you, man. But where are you finding that? Where is this going then? Do you find that? Are you recommending people to just stick with one cloud? The T-shape you mentioned, that is still the way forward.
Yeah, that's still the way forward. And I think that the thing is, the theoretical aspects of cloud is going to apply in every CSP. But it's like learning a programming language, right? Like I compare AWS to Java, Python to Google Cloud. Python is Google Cloud, and then let's do Azure as TypeScript.
Yeah.
While the concepts of like parallelism and concurrency, recursion, object-oriented programming may be the same.
Yeah.
The implementation,
very different.
How you do it, is very different. And sometimes it's opinionated.
Yeah. Inundation is a thing.
Yeah. So it's just like, you got to look at it like that. And that's why I say it's just like, specialize in one CSP, get really good at it, find a community for the CSP, and build that network. Because my experience, like I've worked in AWS and I've worked in Google Cloud, and it's a very different experience between the two, especially identity access management.
Yeah. Like
I have my opinions that I'm not going to speak about, but I would say that like even documentation wise and troubleshooting, how you figure out and debug solutions, logging is different, and the way it's implemented is different. So it's just just specialize in one. Save yourself the pain, save yourself the trouble, specialize in one.
Yeah, but be aware that that's the path you're taking.
Exactly.
So that's the only jobs you can do after that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you wish to transition into something else, do understand that there's going to be a massive time commitment up front to get to that same skill level.
Yeah.
But most importantly, it's just like, you may be able to learn a lot faster because you have this experience in one. Some concepts may translate over to the other.
Yeah. I was going to say, now that we've covered the transition, specifically talking about people who are in the incident response and forensic team as well, a lot of them may not be from a cloud background. a lot of them come from a traditional data center background. They're
Mhm.
super awesome at
Oh,
0
yeah.
days and data centers and all of
Man.
that. And that's kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to ask you a question about the DevSecOps piece and how does one kind of walk down that path. Would it be the same recommendation for people who are in an incident response role today or the forensic role today for if cloud has been added as a remit for the security operation team and you have to respond to those incidents? Would that be the same way for them to start building detections? Like, how would they go about learning skills to be able to build detections?
Oh yeah. Well, I think most important piece is like an incident responder that's doing things in on-prem, most likely is hopefully got experience and exposure to containerized environments,
Yeah.
right? You may have in highly regulated environments, you may have like Red Hat, OpenShift running and stuff like that, which
Yeah.
is basically like a bastardized version of Kubernetes, if we want to be honest. Some of those concepts of like private cloud does apply in the cloud,
Yeah.
but I think that from an incident response standpoint, you have the knowledge and you have the background, the piece. You just have to understand how the cloud services all work together and how they can be architected.
Yeah.
So when I had a couple of buddies who were incident responders that wanted to transition into cloud incident response, my main recommendation was go get the cloud certifications and learn the theoretical aspects of it. And then some CSPs have, those incident response best practices, and they have guys to help you get through and navigate those things. So I'm gonna stay with AWS Solutions Architect Associate, then double back, get the security specialty, and then start playing around in your own project. And then from there, you keep moving forward. And then coding, scripting is going to be very important because you have to be able to build those detections and whatnot. Or if you're building like automated responsive capabilities and stuff, if you haven't done it on-prem, you can do it in the cloud and make your job a lot easier. So you have to have that coding background. And then the last thing is preventative. In a lot of cases, I've noticed that incident responders can help on the preventative side of the house by working with the DevOps engineers to kind of bake in those controls to stop people from doing things. In a lot of cases, like the misconfigurations that happen in the cloud open up the can of worms to begin with. So it's just like if you got that taken care of on the front end, then you can just focus more on the automated portion, which is automating some of the key pieces of your job. That's how I would recommend it to start. Because you have the knowledge already.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned it because I loved at least one of the takeaways for me from the episode is that you had a clear advice for people who are starting their career fresh to start with fundamentals. You didn't mention the certification there, which is awesome. Also, for experienced people who are in incident response, then it makes sense for you to go for a certification. Although it's not marketed like that. None of the cloud providers market it as like, hey, you should have some experience. I think they say that for security and they say that for solution architect, I think. But for associate, they're like, yeah, well, take anyone you want. I'm like, which is fair, but it kind of gives people false assumption that you get a job from it.
Yes. Yeah, you do not.
Yeah, you do not.
You do not.
Yeah, but those are all the technical questions I had. I've got 3 fun questions for you as well.
Okay, cool.
First one being, what do you spend most time on when you're not trying to solve incident response problems of the world?
I honestly spend a lot of my time, of course, spending time with my cats and then playing video games. That's literally me.
Oh, what games are you on?
So right now, I literally just brought the Demon Slayer video game, the Hinokami Chronicles 2. But I've been wasting my life in Persona 3 Reloaded. And if you guys are if you have any PC gamers out there, like, and you have any Persona fans that watch your channel, like, Persona is the game that it's like Baldur's Gate, where you can spend hundreds of hours in and you just enjoy it because it's so immersive.
Really?
Oh my God. And the soundtrack, top tier. Because it's like jazz fusion. And it's so
really?
good. Yes. It's so good.
So it's like you're in a bar while you're playing.
Yeah. And it's like you're playing a game and then you have like the soundtrack just like keeping you going. So it's
awesome.
great.
And the second question, what is something that you're proud of that is not on your social media?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I'm proud of the results of my choices have allowed me to be able to live a freeing lifestyle. I would say I'm very happy with the way that my life has turned out, considering, like me coming from a, lower income household and moving up. I'm proud of the journey. And I think that I'm proud of the friends that I have, the connections that I've made, but also just being able to just live life openly. So that's what I'm most proud of. That's something that I don't post much
Yeah.
about how proud I am and happy I am in my life, because it's just, I want to continue to live it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. Now, thank you for sharing that. Third question, what's your favorite cuisine or restaurant you can share with us?
Oh, that's tough, man. Favorite cuisine. I have to go with gumbo.
Oh, really?
I'm a raging Cajun.
Oh.
I'm New Orleans raised, so gumbo is always going to be my favorite.
Fair. Do you make gumbo at home as well?
I do.
I thought it was like very hard to make gumbos, is it?
It can be.
Yeah.
It
Quite
can
an intense
be.
process.
Yeah, you have to stand over the stove. You got to stir the roux.
It's old school, man. It's like, there's no Instapot helping that. Like there's nothing instantly happening there.
Yeah. And I would say, like, aside from, gumbo like related restaurants, because I live in Texas, there's not that many. My favorite restaurant in Texas right now is a ramen shop. It's called Hanabi Ramen.
Okay.
And it's like a little chain in the DFW Metroplex, but it's really good if you're like a great ramen person. And there's also Mikoto Ramen, which is in South Lake.
Yeah, okay.
You got to go there as well if you're big into ramen, because I love ramen too.
All right. I mean, I think the next time I come over to Dallas side, I'm definitely going to check that out. And I'll hit you up anyways.
Yes, yeah.
Awesome. Where can people find more about the work you're doing, and how can they connect with you?
Absolutely. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn, Damien Burks. Follow me on YouTube at Damien J. Burks. And then also, if you're interested in learning about how to get into DevSecOps and soon to be cloud security development, DevSecBlueprint.com.
Yep.
You can go there, and it basically just has the entire layout. We also built like guides for building pipelines in AWS, Google Cloud. We also have one for GitHub, using GitHub Actions. So like, there's a lot of DevSecOps examples out there for you guys. And the DevSec Blueprint has everything. So just go straight to the DevSec Blueprint.
Yeah, fair. No, I'll put that in. But dude, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, dude. And thank you everyone for tuning in as well. We'll see you next time. Thank you for listening or watching this episode of Cloud Security Podcast. This was brought to you by techriot.io. If you are enjoying episodes on cloud security, you can find more episodes like these on cloudsecuritypodcast.tv, our website, or on social media platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Apple Spotify. In case you are interested in learning about AI security as well, do check out our sister podcast called AI Security Podcast, which is available on YouTube, LinkedIn, Spotify, Apple as well, where we talk to other CISOs and practitioners about what's the latest in the world of AI security. Finally, if you're after a newsletter, it just gives you top news and insight from all the experts we talk to at Cloud Security Podcast. You can check that out on cloudsecurity.newsletter.com. I'll see you in the next episode.